Hi, I'm Lori.
And I'm Kevin, and this is No Longer Ashamed.
We are survivors of childhood sexual abuse.
And we're here to share with you that if you're a survivor, you don't have to be alone.
Our logo is a salamander, and the reason is a fire salamander can survive a fire, and you have survived a fire.
We want to help you with your journey to healing and hope.
We are all survivors together, and we walk this journey together, and you are not alone.
By telling our stories, we are hoping that you will have the courage to share your stories as well and find your voice.
Because stories are so important, and for so long I know that I wouldn't tell my story, but when I finally shared my story, that's when I got my freedom.
And this is our journey and your journey to healing and hope. So come with us.
So, family dynamics.
Yes, it's a difficult topic often, especially for survivors if the perpetrator is someone in their family. But even if it isn't someone that's in their family, it can be an issue, as was illustrated by my friend and his family recently in church. I think the most important thing to realize, if you talk about what happened to you with your family, there is going to be a shift. There is going to be, it's going to affect your family dynamics pretty much no matter what, whether it's a good thing or a difficult thing, or it causes rifts in your family. We've both experienced both different views on how it happens and what happens, and we've had pretty extreme effects in both of our families when we've shared. And that's generally when it comes up, of course, is when you share.
Mm-hmm.
But the main issue for me is it absolutely never is your fault. What the shift is, what is affected in your family, it's never your fault.
I'm so glad we're talking about this, because throughout the years, there have been situations where, for one, I had a friend who would post about her father who had abused her son. She would post, "Oh, it's my dad's birthday," and she would post fond memories. And I would call her, I'd say, "Take that down." She'd say, "Well, you got to find the good with the bad." And I said, "No, that person abused your child.
Mm-hmm.
And your child's going to see this. What are they going to think?" But I think when time passes, like they dealt with it. They did face it when it happened. But still, as time goes on, if you want to remember a parent that did a really terrible thing, I think Christians get caught up with, we're supposed to honor our parents. But I think that we have to be very careful when we're looking at an abuser that's close to us. We cannot give them, we have to be careful, because if we're highlighting them, even there was a situation where a friend of mine, my friend's brother had abused one of her kids. Well, the mother was staying with them. She was in kind of elder care, and so they were caretaking the mom. And it was the brother's birthday, and the mom wanted to have a party, even though the brother had died.
Mm.
And so my friend was telling me, "Yeah, my mom wants to just do a little celebration for my brother's birthday." And her kids were still probably late teens. And I said, "And you're thinking about it?" And she said, "Well, it means a lot to her, and it's her son." I go, "No, he's an abuser. He abused your children. You cannot sit and have a party for this man."
Yeah, celebrating.
That abused not only probably your child, but many more. It was a church situation. They let him have full reign with all the kids in the church because he was the music guy. And, yes, a mother's heart is always going to find that balance, right? Where they can maybe forgive their son, but we don't throw it in the face of the abused, even if they've got the help and done the work. And I see these kind of things happen in families where they want to put the abuser in a place of some sort of honor. Have you ever heard such a thing?
Yeah. Well, part of it is they want to bury the truth or bury it behind them. Say it's all over and just get over it. It's that whole get over it kind of mindset that is not giving any consideration to the survivor. And so whatever it takes for you as a survivor to deal with your family, whatever it you need to do to handle your family, that's necessary for you. And it doesn't matter how it affects your family. And if they want to do something like that, celebrate, or get together, you all get together, have a big thing. And if you aren't comfortable, if that's not safe for you, or it doesn't feel right for you, or if it's going to trigger you and send you can set up boundaries. It's important to have boundaries, and it doesn't matter how they handle it. If they don't handle it well, that's their problem. It's never, absolutely never your fault. If you have to do whatever it takes, if you have to avoid your family, if you have to avoid their phone calls, if you can't talk to them, be around them, whatever means you need to be comfortable, that's necessary, and it's absolutely never your fault for having to do that.
And if you feel like you have to be silenced because of your family, because your family can't deal with the fact that something happened to you, you can protect yourself. And yeah, it's hard if you have to stay away from your family or whatever, but also it's so hard when people don't recognize what you've gone through, and they think, oh, if you talk about it, you're just going to be hurt all over again. So it stunts your growth. It stunts your healing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in my family, I did have to set up boundaries. I did have to say, look, I confronted the perpetrator. It was someone in my family. And this is when family dynamics is really difficult, is when it's someone in your family. But it isn't always, it could be someone your family knows, could be someone they're close to. Generally, most abusers are close to they know the victim in some manner. So it's likely that your family might know them. But in my family, I did have to set up boundaries because at the time I was triggered when I was around that perpetrator. It triggered me, and I would either disassociate. Well, generally I would disassociate. I mean, that's the only way I could handle it. That's how I did it. But there was fallout from that disassociating, and I just couldn't. So I had to say, look, I'm not going to be in touch with this person. I'm not going to gather at gatherings whenever that person is there. I'm not going to answer calls from that person. If that person wants to contact me, they can write me a letter, and that's it. And I'll decide if I'm going to decide what sort of contact I have. Mm-hmm. And it was handled well by my family, but not all families do handle it well. I witnessed that in friends of mine. Mm-hmm. They were talking about their son who had been abused, not by someone in their family, but by someone that they knew. And they were complaining about him because the topic had come up, and the mother had said basically, oh no, now he's going to spiral into PTSD, and now we have to all feel sorry for him again. And she put the blame on him basically for his reaction to just bringing up this topic. And that often happens. The families will say, well, why did you do this to our family if you bring it up? And look what you've done. And now we have to deal with your issue.
Right, with your fallout. And the victim gets re-victimized.
Exactly.
Yeah. There was, in our community, there was a horseshoer that ended up being a child sex abuser. And so, of course, we never, ever had him back. But some people did. Oh. And they were Christian, and they wanted to be loving and forgiving once he was out of jail. And some of them had kids. And I remember saying, how can you have them at your place? Oh, well, they'll never be alone with my kids. I said, but by having them there, your kids think he's safe. So now if they're walking around town and he drives by and says, hey, want to go get some ice cream? He's been at your house. They're going to think he's safe. I think a lot of times churches can be the worst offenders because they want to be forgiving. They want to, give people second chances. But I think we always have to put the survivor first, and they get to have the boundaries around it. And so often I've seen churches that have not protected people who have been abused by allowing the abuser to stay and say, I'm putting quotes, oh, we have boundaries around them. So it is, it happens a lot more than we would like to think.
Yeah. And also just the dynamics of how families deal with it, how they treat the survivor. Some families, I know it's often because they might feel like they're to blame, and so they resent that this happened because they feel guilty about it, or they might feel like they should have protected, they didn't know. And
Yeah.
so anytime it comes up, they're uncomfortable, so they don't ever want to bring it up. They just want to bury it and hide it. I know for my mom, she felt bad about it. She felt guilty. She felt terrible that she didn't know it was happening and she didn't protect me. But she went and got help about it. She didn't blame me. And that was profound for me.
Yeah.
I felt terrible that she felt bad about it. I never wanted her to feel bad about, but she never blamed me or tried to shut me down about the topic or, deny my pain, what I'd gone through and so forth. But in some families that happens because they feel guilty. They don't want to talk about it. So they just expect you to get over it already. It's been years. Can't you just get over it? That kind of thing. Even if it's not someone in the family, they still want you to just get over it so they don't have to face this uncomfortable thing.
Yeah, it's that shut up and take it. Okay, we know we've dealt with it. Can't we just get together as a family? And it's, no. And, some families find a way to do that. Some families, they actually don't ever see those abusers again, even if it's parents or grandparents or close relatives. And that's in my case. And it's just interesting how people, friends of family, will say things like, you just need to forgive and move on, know.
It's easy for them to say, isn't it?
Right. And endanger the next generation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. When there's denial in the family, when there's confrontation, it doesn't matter what it takes for you to protect yourself. They can try and blame you, but it's never, absolutely never your fault for doing whatever it takes to protect yourself. If that means never getting together with your family, if that means just shutting off all contact except by whatever you feel comfortable with, that's what you need to do. That's what's necessary for you. And it doesn't matter if they say, why did you do this? Why did you do this to us? Look what you've done. We used to be so close. You used to be able to get together. Or even if the family still embraces the perpetrator, you don't have to. It doesn't matter if they feel like there's nothing wrong. If it's not right for you, whatever it takes for you to do that's necessary for you is what you have to do. And it's never your fault for that. No matter what the dynamics happen after you bring it up, you're not to blame. It's the perpetrator who did this to you that forced you into this situation.
And it is tough if you are in a position where the whole family's getting together and the perp's going to be there and you've decided you can't. So now here you are. You're the one that doesn't get to be part of the family for nothing you've done. And exactly. I think we have to do what's good for us, but also acknowledging that and validating that it's hard when then you're the one spending the holiday without family because you made a choice to not be around that person and they can't make that choice or they don't. And so that makes it hard. And I just want to send out compassion for people that are going through those kind of things, because you said, Kevin, it's never our fault. And we want to say, don't feel bad, don't feel guilty. Well, you may find a way to not feel bad or guilty that you made your choice, but that doesn't mean you don't feel sad that you don't get to be with your family. And I think that's what's really hard about being a survivor is often because you're doing the work, you're doing the recovery, you're taking the high road in many ways, and the people around you, they're not doing any counseling. They may feel, oh, we're sorry that happened to you, but if family members would go get counseling so they could be a better support, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and if also they would protect anyone else who might be in danger, rather than just saying, oh, that's in the past, that's not a problem. If they would actually show support by being aware of the issue and making sure that everyone else is safe. I mean, when you consider if they're letting them off the hook, they just want things to be as it was before. Well, that's what allowed them to get away with it before. there has to be a change. And if they resist that change, then they're allowing them to endanger more people, more kids.
Right. And how many times have we heard people say, well, they're old, they're probably not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
There was a
Perps
man.
don't usually change unless
Right?
they're forced to change.
There was in our neighborhood, there was a dirty old man, and all the moms told the kids, don't ever be alone with him. You know, if he's walking down the street, you walk the other way, whatever. But he wasn't just a neighbor. He was related to some of the people, and they would have parties and get togethers, and the parents would go and take the kids with a warning. And this was 30, 40, maybe even 50, more than 50 years ago. So they didn't have the education then. But looking back on it, it's like, I would never say to my kid, I would be, yeah, that's a bad man, and I'm going to make sure you never are alone with him. We're not going to go to any parties at their house. We're not going to put you in the vicinity.
Yeah. So what does it take? I think you just have to be aware of the situation and aware of whether or not they're in a place where they can perpetrate again, and try to avoid that circumstance. You know, try to minimize their exposure to the possible victims.
So in my family, you have different segments of your family. And so a segment would have a party and they'd invite us, and we'd have to say, is so-and-so going to be there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we did invite them. Well, then we won't be there. No, we want you to be there. You know the situation. You made your decision. We won't be there.
Yeah.
And then it's sad because then we don't get to be part of that. But also taking good care of ourself is good and important. And family is family, but we can make our own family too. We can find people that we can spend holidays with if we can't be with blood.
Well, and that's where it kind of becomes, it's like the families take sides. They know what happened, or if you've brought it up with the family and they're aware of it, if they're aware of the situation, then they have the choice of who they're going to respect, who they're going to be considerate of. And if you've made your situation clear, then if they make their choice not to consider that, you have to do what you have to do to protect yourself and anyone else.
I am not a big fan of saying shame on you. I think that is a very horrible thing to say to people. But I will say, if you choose a perpetrator over a survivor and they get isolated and they can't attend things because you've made the choice to ignore it or say it should be in the past, shame on you, because you're re-victimizing a victim and you are as guilty as the perpetrator.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. Maybe I'll change that tune, but you go do the work. If you are constantly choosing an abuser over the survivor, maybe you have some issues that you need work on, because we do see that happen, and it's so unfortunate. And there wouldn't be a saying that the victim gets re-victimized if it wasn't happening on a regular basis. And if we can raise awareness for families to take a look at those situations and not try to sweep it under the carpet, not try to pretend it didn't happen, or not say, hey, that was 30 years ago. We have to be respectful of the boundaries of the survivor. And if they say, hey, I can't come because of this, maybe you will need to look at your situation and make a different choice.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can't blame them for that either. Right. If they have made it clear why they're taking, drawing lines, making boundaries, and you want them to deny those boundaries, if you want them to just get over it, then you're the one to blame for trying to force them into a situation that is not healthy for them.
Yeah.
So you have to consider why. Why are you, basically you're taking sides, and that's what happens in families. Family dynamics, when something like this comes up in a family, people start taking sides, and it depends on how they feel about the perpetrator, the survivor, what they think their role in it, if they feel blame because they didn't protect them or weren't aware of it, all these different dynamics. And one of the reasons I'm bringing this up is I think it's very important as a survivor to be aware that if you talk about this with your family, there will be a shift. and you have to be aware. You don't know how it's going to shift either when you first bring it up, but you have to be aware that it will change your family dynamics. It is, and it's not your fault. And you need to be aware that it isn't your fault. Whatever happens, if it just blows up in your family, it's never your fault. And whatever the final dynamics or whatever it comes out to be, that wasn't necessarily what you were trying to do. You're just trying to protect yourself. And that's what's important. And whatever it takes to protect yourself, you have to do that anyway. It's just necessary.
Yeah. Well, and what I've seen is when we don't do what we know we need to protect ourselves, we have a situation coming up and we're like, oh, do we go? Do we not go? When you go and you know it's not going to be healthy for you, like you said, you would go and then you would dissociate. That's never going to be good. And when we've talked about before, the little girl or the little boy, it's the adult us that still has to protect that little person. And that's what disassociation is you take that child back into a situation. And so they're like, I don't feel safe. And so doing the honoring thing is hard. But in the end, if you do what will protect you and take good care of you, you may feel sad because you're missing out. It might be a wedding, it might be a holiday, and it's hard. But there will be this part of you that says, finally somebody's looking out for me. And oh, by the way, it's me.
Yeah, exactly. That's how you take care of that lost child inside of you. It's by showing them that you care enough to set the boundaries and to protect yourself when you need to. For years, I didn't, and I suffered for it. And finally, I had to draw the line. And I also suffered for that. I'm not going to say it's easy. It was hard. And there were times when I felt sad. There were times when I missed out. But it was very important, and I'm glad I did it. It showed that lost child inside of me that I was going to protect him. And that's how he became safe. And so you have to find your safe place and what it takes to keep that safe place. It will change your family dynamics. Be aware of that.
But the perpetrator already did that. The perpetrator already ruined the family dynamics.
And it's their fault. It's the shame is on them. The fault is on them. It's never, absolutely never on you.
Yeah. And even if they had a horrible childhood, when we look at that, it's easy to go, well, I can forgive. That's awesome. Forgive. But that doesn't mean you have to put yourself in the vicinity. That's not what you want. And what brought this up was this great article that Kevin sent me to read, where the columnist really advocated for the survivor. And after we're done, he'll read it, tag it on the end. But I loved reading it. It made me feel vindicated. Yeah. It's like, good, somebody's standing up.
I got emotional just reading it to Charnel because I felt so validated. And that's what we all need. We need to be validated. I mean, it would be great if every family just validated us when we talk about what happened to us rather than question, criticize. But it doesn't always happen. But, reading the column made me feel validated, and I got all choked up. It was funny. But and that was part of it. It was basically that article, that column came out right after I was talking to Charnel about our friend who was doing the exact opposite thing with their son and saying, oh, we're talking about this again. Now he's going to have PTSD. Now we're going to have to deal with that. And they were like blaming him
Makes me
for
so
having fallout from what happened to him. And Charnel and I were talking about that right before this column came out. And then we saw this column, and it's like, wow, yeah, what a contrast.
Wow.
So this is in the Seattle Times back in December. It starts, I might get a little emotional reading this because even now reading it brings up some stuff. So it starts, Dear Caroline, my 10-year-old daughter was sexually molested by her older brother more than 30 years ago. While she never really forgave him, it seems that her response to him has become more and more extreme. He's married and does not live close. His wife is lovely, and my daughter gets along well with her. But if there is an occasion, When the family has to be together, she makes it impossible. She's had therapy but can't seem to let it go. As their mother, I am torn. It's impossible to get together as a family. Any suggestions? And she signs it anonymous. And Dear Caroline answers, anonymous. Is it striking to you that the person who sexually molested a 10-year-old girl now has a lovely wife and implicit family support, and the victim of that sexual molestation has uneven results in therapy, a trauma response to family gatherings, and explicit criticism for being extreme and ruining parties? It's striking to me. Real lives over 3 decades obviously can't fit into a 100-word question to an advice columnist. Maybe your son has had extensive therapeutic intervention of his own. I certainly hope so. Maybe you've backed your daughter consistently with everything you've got, but your version here as presented to me is that the victim is the problem, and that is a hard no. I don't have a harder no in me than the one I have for that. Here's my suggestion. Accept, as a result of your son's actions, that yours is a family that no longer gathers in full. That's it. No family ever has to, by the way. As heartbreaking as that is for you, what your daughter carries is unfathomably more so. Accept that too. If your family's gathering situation changes for the better someday for some reason, then great. But if it doesn't, then that will not be your daughter's fault, just as it isn't now and absolutely never was.
That is so good.
And that, I felt, was the perfect response. And I wish for everyone who's listening that someone they know, someone that's close to them, would also have the perfect response, because that's what helps us find the freedom, find the safe place, is when someone just accepts where they are and acknowledges it and does not blame them for it.
I love how she says, I don't have a harder no.
Yeah,
than no.
that's the part that made me all choked up the first time I read it. Because, I mean, yeah, there is no harder no. That's an absolute no.
I just thought, I hope somehow, some way the daughter could see that.
Yeah, that was, yeah. I hope the mother sees it and acknowledges and recognizes it and then shows her daughter that, and they are able to acknowledge and recognize. So they have new family dynamics where that daughter is protected.
Yeah.
And accepted and not blamed.
And, I didn't want to interrupt your beautiful reading, but when you read the first part before you said the answer, I just wanted to go, wah, poor you. Like, poor you don't have to have a family gathering. What about what this child has gone through? Like, get over yourself.
Yeah, it was all about her and her family and how, this poor girl is wrecking it all for us.
Yeah. And it's been how many years? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
A murder victim, the family, you don't say, oh, it's been 30 years, so you lost your kid. Get over it. That's so unfathomable. Well, I'm so glad that
loved seeing it in print, knowing that it was being run and that people would see that, and maybe there's someone else who saw that and needed to hear that and go, oh, wow, I guess I have been that way.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
That people would learn.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because you think about the victim, the survivor. They go, hopefully they finally share their story. Hopefully they're believed. We know that that's not always the case. Mm-hmm. Then they go and they do the work. They get the help. They do what they need to do to protect themselves. And yet the whole family doesn't have to do anything. And the whole family can decide, well, we believe you or we don't. But imagine a healthier world where the family says, you know what, we're going to get help too. Yeah. We're going to see how we can support you, like your mom did.
Yeah, and exactly.
Of course, if you're a parent, you're going to feel bad. But if you cannot make it about yourself, If you could, with your person, if you can let them know you're sorry and you let them down, but don't make it about yourself. Go get counseling and get help for the guilt you feel, but don't put that guilt on them, because now you're adding layers to what they're already suffering.
Well, and you're making it hard for them to even want to be around you.
Yeah.
Because they feel blamed now, where they're trying to get past that feeling of shame and blame. So,
yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. It's so good.
Yeah. Well, I thank her for doing such a wonderful job. And it was inspiring to me.
Yeah, it was very validating.
Yes. So that's it for today.
We are going to have a prayer time if you want to stick with us. If not, we believe in you.
We want to hear from you. We want to hear your stories.
If you like this podcast, please rate and review, because that's how other people can find us. And we really want to spread this message.
Father, I thank you for all your blessings. And I thank you for those who are supportive of survivors, those family members, those friends, those people who might not know or understand what the survivor is going through, but they want to support them and they want to allow them to do what they need to do to protect themselves and get healthy and get healing. And Lord, I just pray for anyone listening that they would find the people in their lives that do support them and do validate them and accept them and are there to be there for them, Lord. And I just pray, even for those who don't have someone in their lives, that you would be there for them, that you would be in their lives. They would be aware of your support and your acceptance and your love for them, Lord, and that you want them to get that healing that they deserve and to also feel safe as they deserve. In your name I pray.
Father, we thank you for the survivors, that they are getting brave enough to tell their story, that they are doing the work, and that sometimes they have to make these hard decisions. And I thank you that there are people that support them. There is counselors, there's coaches, there's people that will hear them and that will support them. And if they're facing a family that doesn't, give them strength, courage, and wisdom. And I just pray for their family, that you will help them see how they can be more supportive and more helpful, and that it really is a family affair. It's a process, and that we can be part of the healing, or we can choose to not be, and that doesn't help a healthy family. So I just pray that in 2024, that we will share our story, that we will get the help, and that the people around us will have their eyes open and will be willing to get help and support in the best ways that they can. And I thank you that as we learn more, we do better. As we grow, we can be a better advocate. And that wouldn't it be awesome if somehow, some way, we could totally stop childhood sexual abuse? But until then, that we could be the support, that people would know they're not alone. I just pray for blessings on this next year, for hope and healing and health. In your name, amen.